and welcome to another episode of AATBIRDS Opening the Vault. It's been a little bit of time since we've been on this show. We are very happy to have former Philadelphia Eagle, NFL wide receiver Irving Fryar joining us tonight. Going to get into a little bit of some stories and stuff like that we have to share. But Irving, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Johnny, Chip, it's good to be here. I got an issue with you guys. I didn't see my face in any of those highlights.
Johnny.
I'm in none of them. I was sitting here eagerly, anxiously waiting to see my number pop up, score a touchdown, run something. Nothing.
Oh man,
Johnny,
we got to change that.
I failed them there. Maybe we'll have to show the video that I had.
So you know what's funny is that Johnny gets a lot of credit for these videos because every single day these videos come up. There are these great highlights and these great videos and these great images, and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, I get such a kick out of these." You, sir, are the first one who's like, "You know what, Johnny? You let me down a little bit."
Well, they were great. No, the highlights were great. Great players. Great. I mean, just from the beginning, kind of, back in the 70s and on to the present, they were great. I just wasn't in them.
And of course, that's me. Maybe we'll have to just throw the video that I posted earlier in the week. But the one way I want to start it here to kind of talk. You signed with the Eagles back in 1996.
Mm-hmm.
You had played with the Miami Dolphins and Dan Marino, and then moved on to play with the Philadelphia Eagles. And to me, looking at your career, I feel the 96, 97 were one of your two most productive seasons in the NFL. Of course, your time before that was with the New England Patriots. But looking at your 3 years with the Eagles, 2 Pro Bowls, you had over 1,000 yards twice, 2 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. It just the model of consistency. I can kind of relay it and talk about it. Your time signing with the Eagles in 96.
Mm-hmm.
What prompted you to become a Philadelphia Eagle?
Well, I mean, it was really an easy decision. I just finished my 3rd year with the Dolphins, and Coach Shula he had announced his retirement, and they were bringing in, I don't know who it was. I think it was the former coach from the Cowboys, whatever his
Jimmy
name
Johnson.
was. Yeah, Johnson. Yes, they were. I wasn't going to play for him. It was an easy decision. I was real good friends with Troy Vincent, and Troy had already signed with the Eagles, and I was a free agent. So Troy gave me a call. I guess there was some conversation about me in some of his dialogue with the coaches, but Troy gave me a call and asked would I be interested in coming. I'm like, yeah, Troy, I'll go with you. That's where you're going. Let's go. Next thing I know, I got a phone call from the Eagles, and I was there visiting, and I signed with them. I mean, it was an easy decision. One, because I was finished at Miami because Shula was retiring, and I didn't want to play for Jimmy Johnson. And then Philadelphia's home. I was born and raised in Mount Holly, New Jersey. So coming back to Philadelphia was coming home. Now my family, my friends, people I grew up with could actually see me play in person. And, I was the latter part of my career, but at least I got a chance to come back home. Wasn't real happy about the fact that we were in the vet with that messed up turf, that trash can turf. But I played mind games with myself. Visiting teams obviously hated to come there and play. But I played mind games with myself in that, playing on that as my home field, it just made me tougher. That's what I told myself, and so it never became a factor for me. But it was an easy decision to be able to come back here and play in front of my home crowd, home team, and home fans.
I think it's so interesting that you mentioned that Troy Vincent just gives you a call, because now you talk about the tampering that would go with that situation. How dare you have a conversation about wanting to join your buddy and play, but you had all the right reasons. You didn't want to play for Jim Johnson, and I don't blame you because it's Jim Johnson. Yeah. And you grew up as a Philadelphia Eagle fan, and so one of the things that I want to ask is, besides the common sense stuff, I mean, you went from playing with guys who were are Hall of Famers to playing with some guys that necessarily in Philadelphia were not. I mean, as Jason's saying here, you know, we have Detmer to you, and there was 4 touchdowns and 116 yards, and that's awesome. How
that was against Miami. I just left Miami. Yeah.
So obviously you're like, no, like you're gonna throw me the ball. Like I've got things to do. But like as a wide receiver and being a highly touted wide receiver, like a guy who was the number 1 overall draft pick, like which you don't necessarily see anymore unless you're a quarterback or a stud defensive player. How do you go and choose a team where there's question marks at the quarterback position?
Well, it really didn't, you know, Rodney Peete was there.
Right.
Ty Detmer was there. You gotta understand my career up to that point. Really, up to that point, I had played with numerous quarterbacks, particularly my first 9 years at New England. I mean, I can't even name all the quarterback changes that took place. I mean, Scott Zolak, Doug Flutie, Tony Eason, Steve Grogan, and on and on and on. There was, I mean, I have a record in the NFL for playing with and catching balls of touchdowns from 19 different quarterbacks in 17 years.
God.
And most of those changes, Tommy Hodson, most of those changes were when I was in New England, where we really didn't throw the ball a whole lot. So when I went to Miami, and my first year in Miami, okay, I'm playing with Dan Marino, future Hall of Famer. He gets hurt. He got hurt my first year.
Right.
And then, you know, I only got a chance to play with him for 2 years because I was only there for 3 years. So coming to Philadelphia, Ty Detmer, former Heisman Trophy winner, Rodney Peete, who came out of USC doing a phenomenal job as a quarterback. To me, that was a good move. You know, having had played with below average, pretty much for the most part of my career, below average quarterbacks. And the only real Hall of Famer that I played with was Dan Marino. But again, Ty Detmer, Rodney Peete, those guys were a step up for me.
And I think one thing a lot of people may not think about is you also had Ricky Waters in the backfield, who was
you did
a perennial Pro Bowl running back that they had gotten the year prior, 95. They had signed him. And, you know, I think one thing that I think a lot of Eagles fans don't really think about, you had a receiver on the other side of you in 96 that really flourished. And then unfortunately an injury kind of cut his career short, was Chris T. Jones.
Chris T. Jones, yes.
And I just think, like, my opinion on that is if he's healthy, I think you see a little bit different in terms of Eagles in 97 and 98. Just because, you know, the type of player he was, and also it helps you and takes a little bit of the focal point off of you being the number 1 receiver. But, you know, you're looking at all the quarterbacks, and the Eagles did draft a quarterback in Bobby Hoying, hoping he was going to be now, one of our co-hosts, he did want me to ask about Bobby Hoying and the way he threw the ball, just because for some reason he you know, always liked Bobby Hoying as a kid. So what kind of a quarterback was he?
Well, let me drop back just a little bit because I want to address address the Ricky Waters, you know, having a running back. You know, prior to coming to Philadelphia, I had never played with a running back like a Ricky Waters who could be productive in at the level that he was being productive at running back. Prior to that, the only running back I played with that was like that was Mike Rozier in college.
Right.
So all of my career, for most of my career,
he was pretty good.
You know, Mike and I went to college together. We grew up together, and you know, I played with Tony Collins and Mosi Tutupu and John Williams in New England. But you know, it wasn't like Ricky Waters. When I was in Miami, we didn't really have a running game. So I remember it was early in the season. It might have been our first game of the season, regular game of the season. I'm downfield blocking, and I wasn't used to guys with the ball. My teammates, the running back, handing the ball off to them in the backfield and them getting downfield where I was blocking. Like I said, the last time that happened was Mike Rozier. So this particular play, I'm downfield blocking and Ricky runs by me. And I'm thinking to myself, man, okay, I got a running back. This is going to be good. It's going to take pressure off the passing game because they have to be concerned about the running game. And Ricky was a big part of my success in Philadelphia because he's a great running back, and they had to account for him, whether it was putting another man in the box down with the linebackers, or whether it was blitzing, whatever. They had to make sure they kept their eye on Ricky. He was a defensive coordinator's nightmare because he could run the ball and he could catch the ball. Now, Bobby Hoeing was doing great. The latter part of my second year in Philadelphia, John Gruden was still our offensive coordinator. He was mentoring, or he was grooming Bobby Hoeing, and Bobby Hoeing, when he got the opportunity to play the latter part of my second year in Philadelphia, he was very, very productive. So that's why people were, really looking forward to the next year, which was my third year, which would have been Bobby Hoeing's second year. And John Gruden left during the offseason, became the head coach out of the Raiders. We brought in a cat by the name of Dana Bible. Do you remember Dana Bible?
I was actually going to ask about him, but I'm glad you brought him up.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. When we first brought him in, I was living down in Florida at the time because I, bought a house down there when I was playing with the Dolphins. So I would go down to Florida during the offseason, but I'd come back up here, to train a little bit. When I first heard about it, I'm like, okay, Dana Bible. Okay, it's the Bible. He got a last name Bible. This is going to be good. We come into training camp and we go through training camp. And everything was okay, but then we got into the regular season, and what you do in training camp, you're just fine tuning what you're going to do, and you add on to it when the regular season starts. We started all over again when the season started. Yep. He started putting in all brand new plays, which didn't make sense at all. And Dana Bible did not know what he was doing. Period. Yep. Bobby Hoeing's demise was because John Gruden left. And Dana Bible came in, and Dana Bible didn't have a clue. I promise you, halfway through the season, Dana Bible was not our offensive coordinator any longer. He was not the one installing the plays on Wednesday mornings. All he did was go out on the field during practice and hold a clipboard and spot the ball for us when we were practicing. That's all he did. He was no longer calling the plays. I don't know if people knew this or not, but Musgrave started calling the plays halfway through the season. They fired Dana Bible. They didn't let him go. They didn't tell anybody, but he didn't function anymore with the team. And I remember coming in on a Wednesday morning and Musgrave standing in front of the offensive room. And, we had broken out of the team meetings, and we gone to offensive defensive team meetings. And Musgrave's in front of the offensive team, and he's trying to install plays. And he's so nervous that he has to stop and apologize to us because he's stuttering. He can't figure out what he's doing. He had to stop and apologize to us because he said, I've never done this before. He said, this is my very first time doing it. I've never done this before. I've never put in plays. I never installed plays. I've never had to present it to the team. I never called plays. Forgive me, please. I know I'm not doing a good job right now. And I'm thinking to myself, you know what? We just went from bad to worse.
Yeah.
Because it was an absolute, and that was a bad year for me too, because what was going on around us, I started pressing and trying to work harder and do too much. And I wasn't playing well. And then I broke my big toe that year, the second game of the season. And instead of taking the season off and resting and getting surgery, I was very concerned about, okay, I'm older. They're going to think I don't have it anymore. What are the fans going to think? And I played that whole season with a broken big toe, which I should not have done. There's a fine line between being tough and being stupid. I thought I was being tough, but I was stupid. And nobody knew. Nobody knew about it. Trainers didn't know about it. They thought they had diagnosed it actually as turf toe, but I actually had a broken sesamoid bone. Yeah, I had a broken sesamoid bone underneath that I had fixed after the season was over. But yeah, that was a horrible year.
And I remember I'm just kind of scrolling back through to refresh my memory. But when you came in, it was we were a playoff team and we were doing these things, and you start to see this unfortunate steady decline in that last year is where 3-13, and that was the end of Ray Rhodes. And Ray, I loved Ray Rhodes. I remember. It's funny that my own mom is actually in the comments over here talking about how late 90s, that's when I got into football. And
hey mom,
hi mom. Yeah, she's just gonna lose her crap because you just said hi mom.
That's all right. My mom comes on my podcast too. I say hey mom.
But it's so. Let me ask you this. What is your biggest regret about your time as an Eagle?
My biggest regret is that third season that I did not, I look back and it's the same exact injury. Deion Sanders had the same exact injury, broke a sesamoid bone underneath his big toe. Now he just had a couple of toes a little while ago, a couple of toes amputated, because I think of
That's right.
the same kind of issues he was having with his feet. But we had the same exact injury. He didn't play the rest of the season, and I kept playing. I kept getting my toe shot up, and I was stupid. I did it because I thought I started worrying about what people were going to say. I started worrying about how old I was, and what would that how would that play out in the minds of the general manager or the owner? They think that I don't have it anymore. All of those things. And then I started pressing because of trying to help Bobby out, never knowing where he's going to throw the ball. I dropped a few balls that year, but I wasn't as effective on the field because you can't run if you don't have a healthy big toe, particularly at receiver. So I was in a lot of pain all the time, even during practice. So that was my biggest regret, was my third year, because I didn't say anything to anybody. That was my fault. I should have said something to somebody, whether it was a trainer, whether it was the coach, whether it was, doing one of my shows. I should have said something to somebody and taken better care of myself. So that's the only regret I have, is that my last year in Philadelphia wasn't my best year.
And, you talk about your last year in Philadelphia. There's a lot, if you look at the last game, the highlights, they have you riding off with a motorcycle and everything. Mm-hmm. Did you know leading up into that year that was going to be, quote unquote, your last year with the Eagles, or that just kind of?
No, I was on a 4-year contract and I was in my third year. I just finished my third year. I had 1 year left. So my plan was to go ahead and play that last year out, and then possibly retire, look at what was going on and see how I felt, and possibly retire. But then 3/4 of the way, with that injury and how bad the season was going, I wasn't as productive. 3/4 of the way through the season, Tom Modrak, more than 3/4, I would say 9/10 of the way through the season, Tom Modrak pulled me to the side, who was the general manager at the time, and really just told me I suck, basically. I mean, he didn't say it in those words, but he's like, you're not playing the way you used to play, and you lost it, that kind of stuff. And he said, we're going to let you go at the end of the year, or you can retire. So I talked it over with the woman that was my wife at the time, and we decided, okay, we're going to retire, because I had some opportunities in TV and sportscasting and that kind of stuff.
Sure.
So that's what I did. Now they gave me the bike. I gave the bike back when I went to Washington. Yeah, I gave the bike back when I went to Washington because it was only right to give the bike back. I called the Eagles, and Lori wouldn't take it back. So what I did was I sold the bike and I gave the money to the Eagles Youth Partnership, their nonprofit organization that they run. So I gave the money for the bike to the Eagles Youth Partnership, and I went on down to Washington, who at the time it was Washington Redskins, and played for a couple of years. I needed to get that bad taste out of my mouth. I really did. My intention was to retire, but they made an offer, and it was right down the road. It was everything that, if I got an offer, it was everything that I said in my mind. If someone says this and they offer that and they offer this, then I know that that's where I'm going to go. And that's what they did, exactly to the T. And that's where I went and played for the next couple of years.
Well, so I have to ask, because obviously, we are a Philadelphia-based podcast, and the decision after Philadelphia was to go to Washington. So please tell me that there was just no other offers, and that was the only opportunity. Because if you chose Washington over another team, you might be breaking my heart here.
Well, there were other offers, and there were offers after Washington. There were a couple of other offers, but again, they were across the country.
Right.
I had kids at the time that were in high school and middle school, and I didn't want to go and be across the country for half the year. And they're they're on this side, in New Jersey. I didn't want to take them out of school. You don't want to take a kid out of school when he's in high school or when they're in middle school, because it disrupts their lives, particularly when it would have been only a couple of seasons. So there were a couple of other offers, but Washington was the perfect offer. And plus, it was right down the road. I mean, my first year in Washington, every Tuesday, or it was every Monday night, because players have Tuesday off. Every Monday night, I would drive home and stay home Monday night, Tuesday, and then drive back to Washington Tuesday night. So I saw my family every week when I was in Washington.
And, just as a young kid watching you, play for Washington, looking at the Eagles at that point, 99, and then your last year was 2000. In 2000, they had a young quarterback in Donovan McNabb, and the receivers that they surrounded him with, they brought in Charles Johnson and Torrance Small, and looking at your numbers, do you ever think of that you could have helped the young quarterback in Philadelphia and still produced and be able to be a functioning part of the Eagles, or you were in Washington and just didn't come into your mind?
Well, no, yeah. I mean, my biggest concern at that point during that off season was my toe. that was a big issue. I mean, right. it was hurting me so bad. I was a part of the movie Any Given Sunday. I was down filming that movie during the off season, and I couldn't stay and finish the film because my toe was hurting so bad. So I ended up getting surgery on my toe, and then after that, Washington reached out to me, and when I reported to Washington, I hadn't done anything. I told Norv Turner, I said, "Listen, I had surgery on my toe. I don't even know if I can run or not because I haven't run, I haven't tried it, I haven't tested it or anything." And he said, "Don't worry about it. We just want you here." I'm like, okay. So when I went to training camp, that was the first time I ran, and it was hell. That training camp was really, really rough for me because that toe was swelling up every day. I mean, I would just make it through training camp. That whole first year, thank God I wasn't a starter. They didn't bring me down there to be a starter. I did end up starting a bunch of games, but thank God I wasn't. It actually gave me a chance to get that toe tough enough so I could get in the game and play. But my second year there, I was back to normal and was elusive and, had my quickness back and could push off of that foot and all. But that's how that went.
Yeah. So, all right. We obviously get comments, they're rolling in. So I'm going to ask you kind of a two-part question. One is from the comments, and then one's something I want to know. So Jason wants to know, and I feel like I know the answer to this, but I have to give Jason his credit.
You don't know. You don't know the answer. I guarantee you don't know the answer.
Well, I just know you had to go against some ballers, but
yeah,
who's the toughest cornerback you ever faced?
Okay, who do you think it is, Chip?
I mean, you played in a time where Dion was running havoc, so.
Well, obviously Dion is they call him the GOAT with regards to defensive backs. He's probably the best and the most disruptive defensive back, yes, that I played against, but he's not the one that gave me the most problems.
Okay,
the one that gave.
Now I'm going to give a name now. Probably not the answer.
He's going to guess
somebody that you played with when he was young, Champ Bailey.
Oh man, I used to eat Champ up. I made Champ better because I was with Champ down in Washington.
Yeah,
and those 2 years, so I played against Champ every day, and he was obviously younger, and I was an older guy, so I knew all the tricks and whatnot. And at that time, Champ relied a lot on his instincts and his speed.
Sure.
But as a veteran, a savvy veteran, you can use that against a guy who's a little green behind the ears. But no, it wasn't Champ Bailey. My toughest corner, his name was Raymond. I'm sorry, I can't think of his name. What's Raymond's last name? I'm drawing a blank, guys. His name was Raymond. He was in New England with me. Oh my God. Well, Raymond Claiborne. There it is. You probably don't even know who Raymond Claiborne is.
I mean, I'm looking him up, honestly.
Okay, when just let me tell you the story. When I went to New England, I got drafted as a wide receiver, but I played wingback in college. So I was in a 3-point stance in college. Now I'm being drafted as a wide receiver. So now I'm split out, not in a 3-point stance, but I'm split out standing up. And I had never played that position like that before. So now I'm in training camp, and Raymond Claiborne is a little bit taller than me. He was just as fast as I was. He had long arms, and he was a veteran Pro Bowl cornerback. And I had to learn how to get around him and run routes. And he used to kick my behind every day. And I couldn't bring the same thing every day. I couldn't do the same thing every day. I had to figure out how to beat this guy in practice. My first training camp, it looked like I was never going to play in the NFL or be productive as a wide receiver, because when I had to go up against him, he would kill me. he would absolutely maul me because I just didn't know how to run routes, how to be a wide receiver. I had to learn the hard way. And once I learned, I got it and I did well with it. But that first year, man, with Raymond Claiborne, and then years after, I would always, when you go into training camp, this was my philosophy. You want to have a good training camp. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You want to make sure you have a good training camp so you feel good about yourself. So you can go into the regular season with a positive mentality. So you want to go in and perform. You want to run routes. You want to catch the ball. So being a number one wide receiver, I would always have to go against the number one defensive back. So what I did during the off seasons is I would train to beat whoever the number one cornerback was on my team. I would train to beat him. And if I beat him, when I beat him in training camp, I would feel good about myself. And then going out and beating somebody else in a game was easy. Why? Because they don't see me every day. I can do all my tricks. I can do all the things that I've been doing before. When I saw Raymond Claiborne, when I saw Troy Vincent every day, I couldn't do the same thing every day. I had to bring something new.
Right.
So that's how I made myself better.
So it's almost interesting that you say that because of the fact, like, if that's your goal every single year, you're going against a new number one almost every single year. So you had to learn new tricks in order to beat them.
Right.
I like that.
Right.
I like it.
No,
all right. I have to ask the second. I got to ask the second part when you're done.
Go ahead. He brought up struggling, he coming in and stuff like that. I want to bring this up before we get to a video and stuff when we do that. The Eagles have a receiver they drafted in the first round a couple years ago, Jalen Reagor. Now, I know you were a number one overall pick.
He's already laughing.
He's
already laughing.
My question is, you were, number one overall pick. You struggled a little bit. Now you were a good player to start, but you just weren't getting the offensive numbers weren't there. I guess you could.
Well,
say.
That's because we didn't throw the ball. We were
right.
running.
It's a different game.
We were old. Yeah, it was a different game. In New England, it was an old school mentality. All the coaches changes that we had, it was always run first, throw the ball second. I mean, back during that time, if you caught 70 balls, you were going to the Pro Bowl. Now, if you catch 70 balls, you get cut. So it was an entirely different game. Actually, I did not really learn how to be an NFL wide receiver. I didn't get a chance to spread my wings until I went to Miami,
right?
Where they threw the ball. And when I got there and Dan's changing plays at the line of scrimmage and doing that we weren't doing that kind of stuff in New England. We didn't change plays at the line of scrimmage. When I was in Miami, Dan would come up to the line of scrimmage. He'd call a play in the huddle, come up to the line of scrimmage, see his one-on-one with me, and give me a hand signal. Now it's just he and I. That's the kind of stuff that went on. That's why I scored 3 touchdowns on New England when I was in Miami the first time we played them. But we didn't do that kind of stuff in New England. So my numbers weren't good for receivers my first 9 years because we just didn't have that kind of offense.
And I think that's more indicative of what the game is now, rather than like the idea of like the quarterback is the controller of the game, which, as we've already mentioned, you didn't really play with a lot of guys like that your entire career. So here's the hypothetical I want to throw your way. There was a lot of great quarterbacks in the late 90s, the early 2000s. If you had your pick of any quarterback that you could have played with, who would that have been?
I would love to have been in in Jerry Rice's position.
Yeah,
in his shoes, because
right from Montana,
he played with 2 quarterbacks. He played with 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks, Joe Montana and Steve Young.
Yeah,
I mean, my gosh, I'm not and I'm not taking anything away from Jerry Rice. He's the GOAT. He's the best wide receiver to ever play in the NFL. But dang, if I had Jerry Rice, if I had Steve Young and Joe Montana as my 2 quarterbacks instead of those 19 or 18 other cats, and then the 19 with Dan Marino, I think my situation would probably be a little different with regards to numbers.
Probably a little. Tiny bit.
So you're going to ask a question, Johnny, about Reagor. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
So my question has to do it in your time. When you started, it's the whole social media aspect. Do you think that the way social media is nowadays, with no matter what it is, there could be so much hate put towards his way that just, you see like people seeing it all the time. And some people may say, I don't even worry about that. I think it could be a little bit of a lie because people see it and they hear it nonstop, and it can get to somebody, even if they're doing their best to try and, mute it and not have to worry about it. It's still going to get to them. And could that be kind of like the performance aspect of trying to do too much, trying to do it, so perfect that you can't,
Well, yeah, you can try too hard for sure. And I can give you, an example based on myself. My third year that we talked about earlier, and how bad it was. Social media wasn't at the level that it is now.
Mm-hmm.
But back then, I messed around and started listening to the media. I messed around and started listening to the people, and that made my situation worse. It made it worse for me. There was a clip I saw a few weeks ago. I think I was playing against, I want to say it was St. Louis. I think they were in Philadelphia. Anyway, it was in like the middle of the season, or the latter middle part of the season, and I hadn't scored a touchdown.
I think that was my clip I posted.
Was that the clip you posted? Yes, that was the clip you posted. That was the worst. I've had 3 bad days in my NFL career.
Uh-huh.
2 of them were in Philadelphia. One was in New England. I dropped not a couple of touchdown passes. I dropped a couple of passes in one game. The other one was my rookie year here in Philadelphia. I was with New England, and I dropped a punt, and it got recovered by the Eagles. Then my third worst day was also here in Philadelphia. That was that day that I scored that touchdown, because before that, we were doing bad. People were criticizing me. People were, throwing darts at me, and I messed around and started listening to it. So I ended up catching that ball, and man, every step that I took when I'm trying to get to the end zone, it was painful. And when I got to the end zone, man, I laid on the ground and I just cried. If you watch the end of it, I'm laying on the ground and I started crying. My teammates trying to pick me up. I was crying because it was so heavy and so bad. And I was in so much pain. It came out. It came out. I was on the sidelines. It took me to the sidelines. I was on the sideline, took my helmet off. I was bawling on the sidelines. It was just so much built up inside of me that, yeah, all that pressure, man, was causing me to play under stress. And I believe that's a part of what happened with Reagor. He's a first-round draft choice. But the other part of Reagor's issue is they brought another first-round draft choice, Devontae Smith, in, who's doing well. He's a cool cucumber, and he plays the game the right way. And when he started performing and Reagor started kind of having a couple of mistakes and he started pressing, it was downhill for him. Downhill for him. So, and you have to be able to play free. You can't play under pressure. You can't play stress. You have to play free and free-minded. So everything happens instinctively. And he's not able to do that and has not been able to do that.
Do you think, and it's funny that Dave asked this question, do you think that the only way Jalen Reagor is going to have success is kind of starting over somewhere, or can he still find success in Philadelphia?
Well, we're going to see this year. I think A.J. Brown coming in may be an asset for the whole receiving wide receiver core for the Eagles, because it takes more pressure off of Reagor. I think he'll be able to perform because he's not going to be the number 2 guy. He's going to be the number 3 guy. So he'll be able to come in and do his little wiggle and catch first down every now and then, and you hopefully build up his confidence and become an asset to the team, as opposed to a detriment to the team or liability to the team. But I think sometimes that's what's necessary for a player to get reborn. That's kind of what happened to me when I went to Miami. When I left New England, I was trying to get out of New England before the year I was actually released from New England. I had been trying to get out of New England several years before that. But when I finally got released, it was like being born again. It was like setting a bird free out of a cage. And then my career began to take off even more.
So Johnny has kind of set this clip up a little bit.
Yeah, I see he's over there squirming in the seat. He wants to put this, whatever it is, he wants to put it on.
I had it queued up. Like I said, I have not seen this clip. Johnny gave me the Spark Notes about it, but there is some. Johnny, do you want to set this up a little bit before I push play?
So what it is, it's a podcast that former Eagle Jason Dunn, your former teammate, has called Chief Concerns. And it just talks about, he said it's a funny story about, Irving Fryar, and he brings, John Gruden as well. So I'll let it run and then we can discuss it after it plays.
All right. So here we go.
Okay, I'm gonna tell the story real quick. All right, I'll use names. Irving Fryar, who was a minister up there in Philadelphia when I was up there. There was something, we was running the play, and I think he didn't get deep enough on the route, whatever. And Gruden is OC, and Gruden started cussing Irv. I was like, look, first off, I'm a minister. You ain't gonna cuss me out. I'm a grown man. And his son was a ball boy on the team. Irv came back to the huddle. He told his son, grab your stuff, we are leaving. Irv left practice after Gruden said that. Went home. It was like, look, y'all take care of this, all right, before I come back. And so, the head was like, hey, man, you can't be doing, you can't treat everybody the same way, right? And he was a young guy. He was probably 30-something years old. Look, you ain't going to cuss out a vet. You know what I mean? He was 30, 37, 38 years old. He got, my son is out here too? You bad talking with my son out here? Woo! I know Irv did everything look, like he was a minister. He put a prayer in that day. I know he did. Like, Lord, please don't let me strangle this man out here right now. Please, don't let me put my hands around his neck, Lord. But that's how he is. But he's changed. But he's a good guy to play for if you're with him. But I heard some things, man. I know it. I heard it I've heard it. I know it is, man. So I like him. I like him. You love him or hate him. That's how it is.
Gotcha.
And you know what? I kind of knew. I'm like, okay, what? When you said Gruden was involved in it, I knew that was kind of, it had something to do with that day. Yeah.
It's just funny because it popped up, and you were going to be coming on the show, and I'm just looking at certain things, and it pops up, and I'm listening to it, and I'm like, ooh, this is a good one. I have to at least bring it up because it's a funny story. Gruden, Chucky, hothead. I guess he was like that back then too. But it's just funny.
Yeah, Jason got the context. It was a little out of context. It wasn't that I ran the wrong play or anything like that. It was on a Thursday. When we practiced, Wednesdays were offensive day. We had Tuesdays off. Wednesdays were offensive day. Thursdays were defensive day, emphasis on defense. And then Fridays were emphasis on special teams with a little bit of offense, a little bit of defense. And then obviously Saturday, whether it's a travel day or walk through at home or whatever. But that's how practices were run. So my second year, this was my second year in Philadelphia. My first year, everything was cool. My second year, I come in, and about halfway, because I'm older than Gruden. I think I was, like Jason said, I think I'm like third. Gruden's like 35 and I'm like 36 or 37. I'm close to the end of my career, but I was in my mid 30s. I was like a year older than him. So the trainers came to me with the coaches about halfway through my second year with Philadelphia. And they said to me, listen, you're running because I didn't come out of the game. I played, and that's something I can't understand either. Guys catch a ball and they go out of the game. I played every play all my career. I started, right. I didn't come in, I didn't catch a ball and go to the sidelines, block somebody. No, I played. If you had to count up all the plays that were run on all offenses that I've ever played in, I probably played in my career 95% of the plays I was on the field. Out of all the offensive plays ever played in my 17-year career. So the trainer and the coach came to me and said, listen, this is what you're going to do for the rest of the season. On Thursdays, when it's defensive day, you don't need to practice because the emphasis is defense. So you don't need to be out here practicing. You just come out and, stretch, run with the team, warm up, and you watch practice on Thursdays. So I think this was the first Thursday that was going to take place where I'm out there. Okay. Yeah, my son was the ball boy. So I'm out there and I'm standing around, and, I normally didn't do a whole lot anyway on Thursdays because it was defensive day. I thought it was smart because it really helped to save my legs as an older player who's playing all the time. Rather than sitting out a game, I just sit out of practice. So it was cool. So Gruden, I guess Gruden didn't like that, or maybe they didn't tell Gruden. And he came up to me and asked me, "What are you doing? Why are you not practicing?" I'm like, "Okay, well, they told me to do this." And then he said something smart to me. I forget exactly what it was, but he said something smart. And that's when I kind of went off and told him, I said, "Listen, you're not going to talk to me like that. I don't know who you think you are." But, and that's actually why I left, because I wasn't practicing. And I got my son and I left. Had I been practicing, I probably would have stayed out there. But because I wasn't practicing, it really didn't make a difference whether I was there or not.
Right.
That's why I left and went into the locker room. I didn't go home. I just because we had meetings afterwards, I just left the field and went inside with my son. And then the next day, Gruden came and apologized to me. Or we didn't speak for a couple of days, but he came eventually and apologized. But yeah, that was funny.
Yeah, it's and I did the quick, Google search. He is 1 year younger than you.
Yep.
So like I can understand that feeling of like my list of accomplishments is significantly longer than your list of accomplishments. We're just not going to do that.
Right. Yeah. But I'd never, I mean, because he was misinformed or was uninformed, I guess, he didn't like what was going on, but I was the wrong one to talk to. I was doing what I was told to do. Doing what I was told to do. Yeah.
So we've chatted, we've told some stories. So you having been a part of Philadelphia, you having grown up in Philadelphia, as kind of like a wrap-up piece. We know that the psyche of the professional athlete is changing, and a lot of the drama that has surrounded the Eagles over the last couple of years has been the fans were too mean to me mentality. I mean, without saying names, we kind of know that that's what it is. So what advice would you give?
You talking about Carson Wentz?
We try not to mention certain people's names on this network. What advice would you give to somebody who's like, you know what? Philly is where you want to be. How does somebody become successful in Philadelphia? Because we have ideas, but from a former player, how?
Well, I mean, Philadelphia is different than anywhere else in the country. I mean, I've had an opportunity to play in Nebraska. I've had an opportunity to play in New England, Miami, Washington. There's no place like Philadelphia. The fans are connected to the team. The fans are passionate about their teams, whether it's football, baseball, basketball, hockey. They're passionate, and there's no other fans like them. So if you come in and you play hard, and what I mean by play hard is you give it your all. You play hard. If you make a mistake, own up to your mistake. They're cool with that. If you're successful, don't get too braggadocious about it. Accept it for what it is, but know you still have yet more work to do. And if you operate that way, like I said, take responsibility for your actions, not a for who, for what, but if I drop a ball, like when I was playing, there was a game against the Giants, and I gave, if there's a slant route, we have a slant route and the corner's pressing, then I have an option whether I want to run the slant or I can run a fade. Yep. But I'm supposed to give the quarterback a read at some point, not wait too long, not take too long, but hurry up and give him a read. So we were playing against the Jets at in the Meadowlands, and I gave Ty Detmer a muddy read, and he threw the ball and it got intercepted and returned for a touchdown. Well, after the game, we ended up winning the game. I ended up catching a touchdown pass later on that same defensive back, and we ended up winning the game. But I took responsibility, for that throw. I'm like, they were trying to dog Ty. I'm like, no, that wasn't his fault. That was my fault. I ran not the wrong route, but I didn't give him a clean read so that he could make the right kind of throw. That's my fault. And when I did that, that seemed to, people seemed to be cool with that. So if you're playing here in Philadelphia, just take responsibility for your own actions, play hard, and know that they're going to be with you 100%. But listen, if you're messing up, you're going to hear it as well.
No, that's great. And, I like that. It was a great show. A lot of insight, a lot of, flashbacks, memories being shared
Flashbacks.
tonight. You got it. I like it. Love it. I love talking, whether it's present or, a little bit back in the day. I always like bringing up any type of Eagles history. It's always fun to reminisce and, talk about it. And for you playing for them, I'm not sure if it's fun to reminisce because it, like you said to me when we were messaging back and forth, I had mentioned that you were my first autograph session back in '98 when I was like 8 years old. And he's, man, you're making me feel old.
You make me feel old. I'm almost 60 years old, man. I'll be 60 years old this year.
I'm not going to tell you my age, but
you're a kid. You're a baby.
I know. I'm a baby. I guess. But no, it was fun. We really appreciate you being on, telling some stories. Absolutely appreciate everything that you're doing.
What are you doing, Chip?
I'm just in awe. Like I am literally talking to Irving Fryar right now. I am talking to Irving Fryar right now. I'm talking about the Detmer. Wait, Coy or Ty? Who'd you prefer?
I mean, Ty. I had more of a relationship with Ty because Ty was the battle between who was going to start when I got to Philadelphia was between Ty Detmer and Rodney Peete. Right. So Coy came later on. So I had developed a relationship with Ty. So I used to call him Chicken Man. Plus, he and I were on the Reader's Digest together. He and I, Ty and I don't know if it was the first year or the second year, but we were the most productive quarterback receiver combination in the league that year.
Huh.
Yeah.
Go.
Our numbers, quarterback, receiver, our numbers were the highest that particular year.
Interesting. Well, I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
I don't know if it was my first year or if it was my second year.
I didn't know that. Now I do know that Coy Detmer was a pretty good dancer because a couple of touchdown passes he would like to pull out a dance.
Yeah, that I do. And that one that I scored, he pulled out the sword and was dancing. Yeah, he's something else. Coy was cool.
Real quick as we wrap up, why don't you tell the people who are watching what things you're still doing? I know you do a podcast, so why don't you plug your stuff a little bit?
Well, yeah, I'm still pastoring now. I've been pastoring for 19 years, the New Jerusalem in Mount Holly. So I'm still doing that. I have a CDC called Redemption Community Development Corporation. So I'm a little bit of a developer. I am connected with the nonprofit arm of the U.S. Housing Exchange, which is founded by Mario Henry, who used to play for the New England Patriots. Down in Houston, Texas, is where the U.S. Housing Exchange headquarters is. We're using crypto backed by real estate to eliminate homelessness is what we're doing. So great. If you get a chance, you go into the U.S. Housing Exchange, USHX Facebook page and check us out. And then also my podcast. It's called The Fryar Place. We're on YouTube. We're live every Friday on YouTube at The Fryar Place. So go to YouTube, people, please. Search The Fryar Place. That's Fryar, as you can see right there. Not ER. ER is a chicken. Fryar. Search The Fryar Place and please subscribe and hit the notifications button. You can check out some of our my podcasts that have been posted over the year. We were a year old actually. Starting the 1st of July, we were a year old. I've had Rodney Peete on. I've had guys like Randall Cunningham. I've had Doug Williams on. I've had Andre Reed on. Sterling Sharp. A lot of athletes.
Andre Reed. I went to Kutztown. That's my man. That's my man right there.
But I try to keep it well-rounded. So I've had some mental health therapists on. I've had some financial experts on. Last 2 weeks ago, we had Claudia Jordan on, who's a big famous actress. She's been on The Price is Right and Deal or No Deal. She's with Donald Trump on the what is that called? The Apprentice. So yeah, we try to keep it well-rounded, do a daddy-daughter thing. So it's very entertaining. We keep it very informative, but The Fryar Place is about people who've had challenges in their lives, and they talk about the obstacles and then how they've been able to overcome those challenges in their life, which is all of us. We all have challenges that we have to overcome, and we have conversations, what we say that are fire. So subscribe to The Fryar Place.
You know what you used to have to subscribe
as you can see, this is my studio, man. As
Dude,
you can
it's,
see, I'm in my
it's
studio.
I love like the ambiance of it. I've got like a wall of the classroom that I'm still in, but I like that. Wait, can we just say that since you mentioned subscribing, you used to have to subscribe to a certain magazine. It's a weekly magazine. Johnny, you seem to have a picture queued up if you wanted to share with our friends.
What magazine?
That's the TV Guide right there.
Oh, it was the TV Guide. I say Reader's Digest. No, Ty and I were on the TV Guide.
Look at that.
You see, I can't see it.
You got to zoom it in, John.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, there it is. Yep, that was TV Guide. I said Reader's Digest. I meant the TV Guide. Yes,
Look
that's
at
Ty
that.
and I. Yep.
Look at that.
You can
For those youngins who are new to the internet,
They don't
TV
know
Guide
what
is what you
TV
actually had to
Guide
look
is.
at to know what was on the television channels.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
they don't know what the TV Guide is.
My mom
guide,
appreciates
yeah, we
it.
hit the
Good
button and the guide comes up on the TV. that's the TV Guide.
You'd wait for the
the-
slow scroll, and then you blinked, and like you missed the two channels you were looking for. You had to wait another like a minute and a half for it to come. Oh god.
Yep, we used to get a subscription TV Guide. It comes in a minute. You open the book up to the day and the page, or the page with the day on it, and you figure out what's coming on or see what's coming on TV. That was awesome.
And you had a crossword puzzle in the back.
You know, I saw a post today. Someone asked the question, I wonder what the part of my brain that used to memorize all the phone numbers, what that part of my brain is doing right now.
Still remembering your home phone number for when you grew up.
Yeah.
Oh, I still remember mine, 609-267-3162.
See?
Yep.
Me,
9650124. Yeah, I remember mine.
215-643-5130. Oh my God.
It's still there.
We sound like a bunch of Rain Men up in here. All right, listen, that's it. Irving, we want to thank you so much for your time tonight, man. We really appreciate it. That was this was incredible.
No problem, Chip. It was my pleasure to be on with you guys. You too, Johnny. I'm glad that I was watching or was on my phone checking out Instagram, and the clip popped up, and I went in and responded to Johnny, and here we are, just less than 2 weeks later.
Yeah. So again, this has been the All About the Birds opening the vault with the one, the only, the great Irving Fryar. Irving, again, thank you. We appreciate you. And as we end every show here on the AAT Sports Network and the AAT Birds podcast with a very positive and a very happy Go Birds.
Go Birds.
Go Birds.